Welcome to another installment of 5-Minute Tones. On today's video, we're on the AM4 and we're checking out the Atomica High model. This is based on the Cameron Atomica. It's one of my favorite modded Marshall style amps of all time. In fact, I liked the Fractal model so much that I had Cherry Atone make me an Atomica clone. It ended up being called the Molecular. You can go and buy one of those amps from their website now. They ended up putting it into production. I've got a bunch of videos with the Molecular on my channel, but for now, let's just hear the Atomica at stock settings with my free IR. If I enter amp mode on the AM4, you can see we've got gain, master, level, a bright switch, which is a really key component of this amp. Then the bass, middle, treble, and presence are at the stock settings. You can also get access to the depth control on here. Let's have a listen to it with a Les Paul Standard straight into the AM4. It's just the amp and the cab block on here. Happy just loading that up, turning the bright switch on, pairing it with my favorite IR, and I'm good to go for that greasy 80s style modded Marshall tone. If you wanted to get super nerdy with this, something like my Molecular actually has a 3-way bright switch on there, and we could emulate that by changing the bright cap value on here. So if you press the 2 page buttons together, you get amp expert mode over here. We will page across to the preamp tab, and you can see you can change the bright cap value. Let's crank that up to 4,700 picofarads, which is what it would be for like an old Marshall Super Lead or Plexi. And now we'll have a listen to the difference with the bright cap on and off. Necessary, but quite nice to have on there. With that higher bright cap value, it almost works like a big fat mid boost on there. Another key component of the tone with the Atomica is the use of clipping diodes in there, which is modeled as the saturation switch. So if you come down here, you can see at the stock settings on the Atomica, the saturation switch is on and the saturation drive is at 2. What I want to do is switch over to channel B in this block where I've got the Atomica loaded with the exact same settings on there, but I want to have a listen to the saturation drive on there cranked up to 9. I've compensated by turning the level up. This changes the feel. It's a lot stickier, more compressed feeling, quite satisfying to play, and would be quite nice if you're playing lead guitar. Atomica can get pretty chuggy as well. I've turned the gain up. I've backed the master off. I've got the bright switch on, and you can see cranked the bass, brought the mid-range back, brought the treble and presence up slightly. And what I've done, again in amp expert mode, is made use of another awesome feature, which is the built-in amp block input boost. I've set it to the grinder boost. I'm going for 18 dB of gain. So this one is based on a Fortin grind, which itself is a clone of the TC integrated preamp. Have a listen to what this does to that Atomica tone. There's just a couple of ideas to use the Atomica High in there. I think the real key is in that bright switch. And if you wanted to get nerdy, playing around with the bright cap value, the saturation switch, and a built-in input boost. But honestly, it's pretty amazing at the stock settings on there. Instant modded Marshall gratification. One last thing that I will show you with this preset is that I've put together a couple of different channels in the amp block with some of my favorite effects in here. Scene 1 is just the stock settings on there. Scene 2 is channel B in the amp block, where I have cranked up that saturation switch. I've also got a dimension chorus in there to add some width. Scene 3 is the third channel in the amp block, channel C, but I've chucked a compressor in front of it for a little bit of extra juice. I've got the dimension chorus on and then a dual delay. And then scene 4, this one's really interesting because this amp is so good at 80s style tones. It's a compressor, no amp block, a chorus, and a delay. And what I'm doing with the compressor over here is I'm using the Rock Guy compressor, cranking up the compression and the tone on there. It sounds pretty much identical to the Clean 2 mode of the Rockman X100. Let's hear these sounds. I'll play you all out. If you want to grab my IR or you want to grab my preset pack, they are linked in the video description. This preset will be in the preset pack. You can sign up to my Patreon. You can check out some of the music that I make with my band Ragdoll. I really appreciate you watching these videos, and I'll see you on the next one.